We're now 2 days out from this week's elections. Has the media learned anything at all? Well, let's check in with one of the members of it. Here is Anderson Cooper grilling Pramila Jayapal.
Congresswoman Jayapal, you saw what happened last night. Do you take any blame in this?
Anderson, it's good to see you. Look, I think that the whole issue that we see from voters last night is people do need help from us. And that's what we've been working to do with the president's Build Back Better agenda. It is really transformational. And I think the cries for help in the midst of an economy that was handed in tatters to the president, that we have actually worked to fix since we've come into power in the House, the Senate, and the White House. We cut child poverty in half. We got shots in arms. We got money to small businesses. But obviously, Anderson, this was a 2-year pandemic that the Republican Party did not take seriously, and we're still climbing out of it. I mean, there's no doubt
you're saying people last night were saying that they need help. It doesn't seem like they're asking you, progressive Democrats, for help. It seems like they're asking now Republicans for help, even though you say Republicans botched the vaccine rollout. I mean, Republicans did well last night.
Okay, so he was not going to allow her to like talk about policy or what they could get done. And by the way, I don't agree with Pramila Jayapal on literally everything, but she was pointing out what they've tried to do. You could see him like his face was like twitching to get, no, it's about you being blamed, and we're gonna talk about you being blamed. Now, I will ask this because we're gonna pull Dan in. I don't generally watch much CNN, so I don't know. I'm gonna genuinely ask. Is he saying the same thing to Joe Manchin? Is he saying the same thing to Kyrsten Sinema? Is he talking to, I don't know, McAuliffe? Like, seems like sometimes the candidate's responsible for losing. I honestly don't know, but what do you think about that?
There's this sort of fake objectivity and pushback you get sometimes here or there, but I haven't seen much of it personally. And I wish Pramila Jayapal, and her strategy was really strong, at least about a month ago when she was standing strong with the representing the progressives in Congress, saying, listen, we're not going to do these bills separately. But now it's seeming like she's starting to pull back a little bit, and she's doing the thing that unfortunately progressives have been known to do when they're elected in office, which is cave, which is sad to see. But I wish rhetorically right there, Pramila Jayapal would have said, listen, the X, Y, and Z things are things we would have been fighting for, progressives would have been fighting for. We wanted like childcare to be like, we want these things to be lasting over years and years, and people like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema have been cutting these programs systemically through these negotiations. And we're trying to pass Joe Biden's agenda, Joe Biden's supposed agenda, but honestly, Joe Biden isn't really giving us a lot of help here. So to blame progressives when it's not like the Democrats are supporting progressives as a party is just mistaken political analysis. And that's mostly what I was upset about when seeing a lot of the cable news, which unfortunately a lot of people are still paying a lot of attention to. The analysis was just bad considering what they're being paid to do.
Yeah, I mean, look, some of these are not difficult questions. By the way, I don't like 100% disagree with him saying, like in his snarky little way, well, it doesn't seem like they want your help. They want the Republicans. Well, first of all, it wasn't a progressive was on the ballot. Let's be very clear about that. They got Terry McAuliffe. Why is Pramila Jayapal or AOC or Rashida Tlaib responsible for whether they found the appeal of McAuliffe versus Youngkin? Which of those they ended up choosing? However, if his general point is they don't seem like they want Democrats, they want something else, the necessary follow-up question is, so then what changed? I mean, after all, they gave the Democrats the White House, they gave them the Senate in 2018, they gave them the House. So what changed? He hasn't passed his agenda. And he will then speculate about what the people might want. But it's not like we only like have to craft political theory about this. There are polls. We understand the components, many of which you mentioned in the Build Back Better bill are wildly popular. This is not a matter of speculation. We know that they're popular, but they haven't been passed. He cannot conceptualize that. He cannot figure out why people would be angry when they have things dangled in front of them, but then don't actually get them. He's implying that it was the promise of popular policies that was the problem, not the failure to actually follow through on them.
And like, we do shows every single day, or like we're following these things like weekly, right? Like Anderson Cooper should know, should have been laser focused on the battle that's been happening in Congress and seeing what was going on. And okay, we understand he's going to have this bias towards, being on CNN and being a really mainstream person, not really giving progressives any favors here or there. But to angle it even in like I'm just asking questions, I'm just posing an idea way like that, as though, it seems like the way progressives are doing things is not popular. How about the characterization of like the characterization that the Republican Party has been doing over the past several months of the Democratic Party, saying that they're going into schools with critical race theory, and now you have teachers who have their lives threatened because of basically Republican propaganda and conspiracy theories. There's no mention about that, and there's also a point to be said about why didn't the Democrats weaponize this a little bit more? But because anti-Trump stuff works, you could tie this more to Trump and maybe use it to your advantage. I am looking at both sides here, pointing thumbs, not fingers, but ultimately, it's a story as old as TYT, and even older than that. The media is so bad at covering these things, and it's a real detriment to its audience.
Yeah, and it is bad for a couple of different reasons, and depending on which event or which news event, the different reasons can be more or less applicable. In this case, I do think that, look, these shows are filled with people that are not. They're not there because they're the cleverest individuals. They have the best grasp of historical context or the greatest understanding and daily following of polls, an idea of what people actually want. It's also what they're pushing for. And the thing is, like, one of the main myths of networks like CNN is that they will be objective. They're not there to tell you what should be done. But he is doing that. He has an objective, and the network at large does. They don't want these bills to pass in the form that they're in. So you bring on Pramila Jayapal and you yell at her for trying rather than grilling Manchin. And I get it, grilling Manchin's kind of pointless because he doesn't care. He's not really representing anyone. But they share an objective with Joe Manchin. They simply do not want these bills to pass. They certainly don't want any bill to pass that would necessitate higher taxes to pay for it. That is a goal that is shared by Joe Manchin's donors. Anderson Cooper is an incredibly wealthy person in his own right, and the wealthy people who own networks like CNN. But they will never actually come out and say that, not on their straight news programs. Instead, you have to infer it from who they are willing and ready to apply pressure to and who they will not. They take the person who is standing with Joe Biden, trying to get Joe Biden's agenda passed, and they grill her instead of the people who are actually stopping it from happening. That's how the game works.
Yeah, it's just a shame.
Now, you want to move on to something potentially even stupider? Well, really fast, I'm just gonna mention this just because I saw this headline, I thought it was ridiculous. James Carville, there's a headline. James Carville shreds, quote, stupid wokeness after election losses, quote, these people need to go to a woke detox center. Thank you for bringing this person on the news. This is what we need to understand what happened this week.
It's just real Bill Maher stuff. Like Bill Maher, James Carville, like even Dave Chappelle to some extent. They are speaking to an increasingly shrinking insular audience that likes this, haha, yeah, I care about, liberal issues. I don't like Republicans, but screw these people telling me what I can and can't say. And that's a bigger issue to people than not being paid enough and going into extreme amounts of debt because of healthcare. And like it's completely out of touch, and it's also not funny. It's just increasingly not funny, which is why I bring up all these same three names together.
Exactly. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.